From whether we'll see more of Zendaya's character Chani, to wondering if the film's ending will be the same as the books, here's every question that fans need answered in Dune Part 2. When Denis Villeneuve's Dune was released in 2021, fans were thrilled to see a faithful and accurate adaptation of one of the greatest science fiction books of all time, written by Frank Herbert. They were even more excited to learn that Villeneuve was breaking up the first book into 2 parts. But after watching Part 1, fans were left with a lot of questions. And those questions need to be answered in Dune Part 2. The biggest question fans have? Will we see more of Zendaya's character, Chani? When the first few trailers of Dune dropped, we all got to see Zendaya, and many people went to see the movie all because of her. But when fans watched the movie, they were disappointed to find that Timothée Chalamet's lead character, Paul Atreides, doesn't truly meet her until the end of the film, even though he does dream about her throughout the movie. Dune book fans know what an important character Chani is, and many hope that we'll get to see a lot of her in Dune Part 2. But how much of Chani will we see? And will the new movie be as faithful to the book as Part 1 seemed to be? This leads us to the other huge question that we'd all like answered. What will we get to see of Paul and Chani's relationship? Paul and Chani didn't fully meet until near the end of Dune Part 1, and we really didn't get to see anything about where their relationship would go. Obviously, the movie hints at what's to come, but will Part 2 finally get to show us more of Paul and Chani together? Book fans know they're one of the biggest couples in the entire Dune universe. So it'd be crazy not to show off a relationship fans want to see badly. But the movie has to cover a lot of ground in only a few hours. And if the movie does faithfully follow the book, some moments might not be shown as fans would like. There's so much material in those books, and it's a big challenge to cover it all on film. And now fans are wondering if Chani and Paul's relationship will suffer on screen as a result. After all, the first Dune book spans a few years. So does this mean that Dune Part 2 will? Fans would like to know the answer to this question, because a big time jump would be a bold move for the film. If Dune 2 stays true to its source material, we could be looking at a 2-year time jump in the sequel. In some ways, it makes sense to see this time jump, because we'd be able to see Paul adapt more to the Fremen, and his relationship with Chani will obviously also grow. But whether we'll see this on screen or not depends on how the time jump is used. A time jump also makes sense for Paul's character because in Dune Part 1, he's not in complete control of his precognitive powers, but he needs to be. With this 2-year time jump, he could improve his control, and the film could set up the insane story that follows without wasting too much time. Another question on people's minds is if we get a time jump, does that mean we'll get to see more of Bene Gesserit? The mysterious woman known as Bene Gesserit was introduced in Dune Part 1, and she's part of a sisterhood that excels in superhuman powers. While the women usually birth daughters only, Paul's mother changed things up when she had a boy, Paul himself. This allowed Paul to have superhuman powers, but so much of Paul's powers, his mother Lady Jessica and Bene Gesserit, remain a mystery after the first film. Fans of the book know that Bene Gesserit is expanded more in the novel, especially where Lady Jessica is concerned. So will we see more of this secretive group and where their real loyalties lie? Will we get to watch Lady Jessica's future and the truth of her past unfold in Dune 2? And perhaps most importantly, will Paul's sister Aelia be introduced in Dune Part 2? There are many characters that fans are looking forward to seeing on the big screen. But perhaps the most highly anticipated of all is Aelia Atreides, who plays a vital role in the book. If you recall, when we last saw Lady Jessica in Dune Part 1, she was pregnant. So we'll likely see her child Aelia in some capacity in the second movie. For such an important person in the Dune universe, fans are clearly left in the dark about this character and her role in the sequel film, mainly because she hasn't been officially cast yet. While we've learned about an awful lot of casting news regarding Dune Part 2, including the likes of Austin Butler, Florence Pugh, and others who've joined the film, we've heard nothing about who's set to play Aelia. It looks like her casting's being kept under wraps, which is suspenseful indeed. Aelia isn't the only character fans are excited to see on screen. They're eagerly anticipating the arrival of Emperor Shaddam IV. But how much of the Emperor will we actually get to see? Will his role in the Dune universe be consistent with what happens in the books? Dune Part 2 has a lot of ground to cover, and the Emperor must be introduced. Christopher Walken's set to play him, which is a huge win for fans. Because for one thing, who doesn't love the great Christopher Walken? And two, who better to play the Emperor than him? Although the Emperor was discussed in the first movie, he wasn't introduced on screen. So Dune 2 must take the time to really set up what type of character this man is. Will they stay faithful to the books, or will they gloss over this vitally important character? After all, a lot is set to happen in this film, and with so many new characters to introduce, fans are worried that some won't get the screen time they fully deserve. The Emperor is one of the biggest villains in the universe, and sets up forces against Paul time and time again in the books. It would be nice to see this all play out on screen, especially since Walken's playing the role. How can we forget the face-off between the Emperor and Paul in the book? Will we see it play out in Dune Part 2? Without spoiling too much of what goes down between the two, it's insane. I can't wait to see how this is adapted on screen. And hopefully, the film follows the book and the showdown between these two important characters. Paul's storyline thus far in Dune Part 1's been tame compared to what's to come, and Paul will go through a lot in the second film. But will the movie end as the book does? If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, we won't spoil it for you. All I'll say what Paul goes through in the book is an incredibly dark time for him. It's shocking to read his story, and I imagine it'll be even more shocking to see it all play out on screen. If Villeneuve chooses to stay faithful to the source material. Nobody knows if he will, but if he wants to further expand the Dune universe and stay completely honest with the book, it'll be amazing to see. At the same time, if he keeps the book's ending, film fans who aren't familiar with the book may be quite surprised, and even upset. Very rarely do big franchises choose to do what Frank Herbert did with Dune, and create such a depressing ending. Many screenwriters suspect Villeneuve will change the ending and give audiences a happier version. Because after all, this is a big-budget Hollywood movie we're talking about here. And it's not uncommon for studio execs to change things up on the fly for financial reasons. At the end of the day, filmmaking is a business, and it's all about the Benjamins. So from wondering if the ending of Dune 2 will stay the same as the books, to questioning if we'll get to see more of Zendaya's Cheney, that was every question fans need answered in Dune Part 2.